Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, and today we're going to talk about UFC 323, Merab Dvalishvili versus Petr Yan, the rematch. And my friends, it's going down next Saturday live at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. So today I'm going to do a little early preview, talk about some of the fights that I definitely have takes on. Going to skip over the ones I don't have any opinions on at the moment. And then, as y'all know, Wednesday of fight week, I'm gonna have the full card predictions. So without further ado, my friends, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. Want to wish y'all a very, very happy Thanksgiving, and let's get right down to business. Because in this main event for the bantamweight belt, we got the champ Merab Dvalishvili. He's 21-4, taking on the former champ Petr Yan, who's 19-5. Currently, they got it Merab minus 450. The comeback on Petr Yan is plus 350. So Merab's 34. Peter's only 32. Peter's an inch taller at 5'7", but it's Merab that's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage at 68 inches of reach. So hell of a rematch. And I mean, I say that, but the first fight wasn't competitive at all. But I'm sure you guys have heard ad nauseum, Petr Yan couldn't throw his right hand. And if you look at the stats, it kind of backs that up a little bit. But I think he's going to be able to throw his right hand here. The question is, will that be enough to cover the gap in terms of the pace that Merab fights at compared to Petr? Don't get me wrong. Petr doesn't fight at the slowest pace in the world, but we often like to talk about how Petr likes to take a round off to make his reads and download data and this and that. I'm just thinking to myself, like, taking a round off against Merab Dvalishvili sounds like the worst idea ever. And when you're talking about bridging the gap, the thing about it is Merab's evolved so much since the first time these guys have met. You know, we were making a huge deal about how Merab hit 11 takedowns on Petr Yan, an even bigger deal about how he attempted 49 takedowns on Petr Yan. Like, it doesn't get any better than that, right? Wrong, because in Merab's most recent fight against Corey Sandhagen, this dude goes out there and he lands 20 takedowns in a 5-round fight, attempts 37 of them. And then it's like, well, his strike output must be super low if he's getting that many takedowns. Also wrong. I mean, this guy attempted nearly 400 total strikes, landed 243 total of them, 114 significant. So it's like, Merab's just a problem. To go out there and beat Merab, I think you got to put Merab to sleep because you are not outworking Merab Dvalishvili. The thing about it is, the last time Petr dropped something was that Corey Sandhagen fight almost half a decade ago. Before that was the Aljamain Sterling fight. I'm saying times have moved on, and boy, have they moved on fast. Now, shout out to the GOAT Meticulous, because, you know, it's no longer a half the battle breakdown without the highlights. So let's look at the highlights of the champ, Merab Dvalishvili. Yo, shout out the GOAT Meticulous with that TV. Shit's looking dope. But yeah, I mean, listen, Merab's a guy that's made a name for himself with this relentless style. And you think that he already reached the pinnacle just by being the champ and this and that, but it's like he keeps getting better and better. And he can overcome adversity like he showed in the Marlon Moraes fight back in the day. Like he's shown in a ton of fights, man. Here's that first Petr fight. I mean, it wasn't even remotely competitive, but Petr is blaming it on an injury. The thing about it is, just like I said, is he going to be able to close the bridge the gap of the output that Merab brings to the table? I personally don't think so, but I mean, this is why they're running it back. But yeah, Merab, again, credit to his improvements. Like, you compare the first O'Malley fight to the second O'Malley fight, and it was like a night and day performance. Don't get me wrong, the first one was clear as day too. But to come back the way he did and just shut him down, like no talk, no argument for it being close or anything like that, to go out there and finish him was a huge statement. To hand Umar Nurmagomedov his first UFCL was also a massive statement. So with Merab, it's just like, how far is he going to take this, man? You know, is he going to be the greatest bantamweight of all time? I mean, do you already consider him the greatest bantamweight of all time? I think you got to, because the only other options are the TJ Dillashaw's and the Dominic Cruz's. I put Cruz ahead of Dillashaw, but Merab's already got Cruz covered in terms of title defenses. And I know a lot of newer fans probably think it's a joke for me to bring up the TJ Dillashaw's and the Dominic Cruz's, but listen, if you've been watching the sport since the bantamweight division first started, since its infancy, then you have to give credit to the legend Dominic Cruz. I mean, that's just how it goes, man. But Merab's surpassed the great Dominic Cruz, and I will say that he is the greatest bantamweight of all time. Y'all know I got a lot of love for Petr as well. I mean, I was very vocal and outspoken about when he lost the belt against quote unquote lost the belt against Aljamain. You know, when you knock a grown man out and they call him the winner. But here's the reality. That was one of the stupidest in-fight decisions I've ever seen in all my years watching the sport. And yeah, he's bounced back and gotten some wins since then, but he just hasn't looked like the same guy. Don't get me wrong. It still looks like Peter, but what I'm saying is doesn't look like this is the best bantamweight on planet Earth. He looks like a top 5 guy, but it's clear as day that in 2025, heading into 2026, Merab Dvalishvili is the best bantamweight on planet Earth, and I believe that's going to be the case next Saturday at the T-Mobile Arena. Hey, but we got to show some love to Peter, too, on his highlights, man, because he's just such a badass. He's really one of the funnest guys to watch in bantamweight history, whether it was when he first came into the UFC. Oh, man, he gets dropped in a couple of fights, too. Hey, he can overcome adversity just like the champ Merab. But it was always a thing with Peter. Yeah, he takes that first round off, and then by late second round and third round, it's all him. And it's like, that's going to work against these guys that he fought on the lead up who were either past their prime or just not on the caliber of a guy like Merab. But you try something like that against Merab, you're already going to get off to such a deficit that it's just hard for me to really believe that unless Peter dishes out some significant damage, I just don't see how he wins this fight. But at the same time, when you're getting plus 400 odds on a world-class fighter like Peter, I understand why people are making the argument, because at the end of the day, if you're a betting man, it all comes down to the odds. I mean, that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. But it's just scary for me to bet against a guy like Merab in his current form. So it's really a pass for me. I don't see any value on the minus 500 Merab. Probably a dog or pass situation, but it's going to be a pass because I'm picking Merab in this spot, man. I really am. Co-main event of the evening for the undisputed flyweight belt. We got the champ Alexandre Pantoja. He's 30-5, taking on Joshua Van, who's 15-2. Currently, they got it Alexandre Pantoja minus 225. The comeback on Joshua Van is plus 190. So Pantoja is 35. Joshua Van is 11 years younger at 24. Both men are 5'5", and Pantoja is going to have a 3-inch reach advantage at 68 inches of reach. Now, this one, I think, is a little bit tougher to call than the main event of the evening. We'll see how it actually plays out when the time comes, but right now, a week before the fight, this is really interesting because when you're talking about Pantoja, you're talking about a dominant champion. You're talking about one of the greatest flyweights of all time. And in my opinion, he's on his way to becoming the greatest flyweight of all time. And if he defends his belt here against Joshua Van, that further solidifies that argument, because one thing about Pantoja, see, I've been around since the infancy of the flyweight division. So I remember when there was a champion that, people try to act like is the greatest of all time. No, he's not, and was ducking super fights, opted to fight Ray Borg instead of the TJ versus DJ super, all that kind of bullshit, right? Whereas Pantoja is consistently fighting the toughest guys multiple times a year, doesn't duck anybody. So, but the thing about Pantoja that I really respect is obviously since the beginning, his back-taking ability has always been second to none. But the way he's been able to just adjust and evolve and adapt as his title reign has progressed and add new wrinkles to his game, he's just looking so dominant, looking like he can rule this division till the end of time, man. Because like you think, oh, he's just a jiu-jitsu guy. What's his stand-up like? And then you got these world-class guys like Kai Kara France, like Brandon Moreno, and they're really not having much success on the feet against Pantoja. It's Pantoja walking them down without a care in the world, and they're so worried about this back take that their game completely shuts down. Now, on the other side with Joshua Van, for only 24 years old, this guy is wise beyond his years. Now, you could make the argument that, hey, maybe it's too much too soon, and one day this guy will be ready, but not yet. Maybe not, because to me, it's like on one hand, this guy's had 10 UFC fights. So it's not like this is his second or third UFC fight and he's getting the title shot. And number two, this guy beat the number one contender, Brandon Royval. And as far as I'm concerned, beat him decisively. Like, yeah, it was a back and forth fight, but it was a clear win for Joshua Van. And there's even an argument for a 30-27 as well. And Joshua Van has got serious volume on the feet, ridiculous takedown defense, the heart of a lion, cardio, output. he's got a lot of intangibles that make you think he's got a chance in this fight. Now, when you're talking about the champion, Alexandre Pantoja, you're talking about one of the greatest flyweights to ever do it, and a guy that's been doing his thing for a very, very long time. I mean, that back take is absolutely elite, but don't sleep on his hands, or you might taste the canvas like Wilson Hayes did there in Atlanta, Georgia. And then you talk about the chin of a guy like Pantoja. I mean, Davison Figueiredo is the only man in UFC history to drop him. And Davison's one of the heaviest hitters in flyweight history. But these back takes, I mean, to submit a guy like Brandon Royval and all the other people he submitted along the way, is just absolutely ridiculous, man. And then winning the belt against Brandon Moreno, who was brimming with confidence at the time, defending it against Royval. Hey, the first fight wasn't a fluke, my man. And y'all know he's beat Brandon Moreno 3 times. And then this fight against Usyk, he had a lot to lose because no one knew who Usyk was unless you're a hardcore fan. And Usyk, in my opinion, didn't even deserve the title shot, but Pantoja showed once again why he's the undisputed UFC flyweight champion of the world. They bring in a dude from Japan who was a champion in another organization. I mean, Pantoja ran through him too. Pantoja had Kai Kara France absolutely petrified to the point where Kai didn't look like himself at all, even on the feet, you know? And these back takes are just ridiculous. It's like you train for it and you still can't do anything to stop it. That speaks volumes to the dominance of Alexandre Pantoja and the fact that I know what he's going to do. You know what he's going to do. His opponents know what he's going to do, and they still can't stop it. Now, on the other side with Joshua Van, I would categorize this guy as a young phenom. I mean, ever since he made his UFC debut, he's someone that's absolutely stood out. Now, he's tightened things up along the way because you remember a big criticism we had of Josh Van when he first came into the UFC was this guy gets hit entirely too much and kind of like Petr Yan, downloads the data and then really starts to put it on you in the latter parts of the fights. But I feel like he's been doing a lot better about coming out hard in the early going in these fights. Like you see that in the Brandon Royval fight. He won that first round very clearly. And I'm glad that he had his setback against Charles Johnson because no one is exempt from that first L. And that's what fighters need to mature and to take things to that next level. So he got, you know, the setback behind him. And since that point, I mean, he's just beating the dog shit out of guys in a way where it's like, yeah, this is the #1 contender. His sprawl is absolutely disgusting. I mean, I got friends that have fought Josh Van. They tell me this guy's lower body, I mean, it feels like you're trying to move a car. It's like you're trying to move a van, no pun intended. You know what I'm saying, man? And every single person they've given him, for the most part, he's handled them accordingly and then some, which all culminated to this fight of the year contender against Brandon Royval, which was a #1 contender fight. And I mean, it was arguably 1-1 going to the third. I had a 2-0 Van. And then Van puts a statement, exclamation mark, on that third round and drops Royval and secures and solidifies that UFC title shot. So I got to keep it 100 with y'all like I always do. So obviously I'm recording this on Wednesday, the week before fight week. So I'm going to come back next week on actual fight week and give y'all some better opinions. But right now, in my preliminary opinions, I think this is a dogger pass situation. Like, is it going to surprise me if Pantoja shows his dominance and the skill gap on the mat is just too wide that when Pantoja does take the back, he can just go out there and rear naked choke a guy like Van? No, that's not going to surprise me. But is it also not going to surprise me if Van not necessarily weathers the storm, but survives the early ground dominance of Pantoja, then gets the fight back up to the feet where Pantoja needs to gather himself, needs to catch his breath. And that's where you're going to see ridiculous output from a guy like Van, ripping to the body, going upstairs, nonstop in your face. So the dynamic of this fight is ridiculous. Like I told y'all with that main event, I'm pretty confident Merab's going to do his thing. Whereas here, it's not that I'm not confident in Pantoja, because I truly believe that, like, this guy is a champion who's not buying his own hype, who, you know, they talk about sleeping in silk sheets. You might not want to wake up early. No, this guy's waking up early. This guy remembers where he came from. This guy remembers what it took to win that belt. And from what I've heard from him in all his interviews, he's just using his money to reinvest in himself. And now he's tightening up little elements of his diet, his sleep. Like, this guy lives and breathes being a UFC champion. He's got a lot of pride in it. So if it's simply not Josh Van's time and he's going to be a champion down the line, not next Saturday, I completely understand it. But if we have a scenario where we're going into a new year and it's a new era of the flyweight division. I also get that too. And when I'm talking in these terms and I'm going back and forth, probably makes it a dogger pass situation. So we'll see where I end up next week. But for right now, I'm thinking it's dogger pass. Featured bout in the bantamweight division, we got the former champ Henry Cejudo. He's 16-5, taking on Payton Talbott, who's 10-1. Currently, they got it Payton Talbott minus 275. The comeback on Henry Cejudo is plus 235. So Cejudo is 11 years older at 38. He's 6 inches shorter at 5'4". He's going to have a 2.5 reach disadvantage at 67.5 inches of reach. So really interesting fight in the bantamweight division. And kind of like I was talking about with the Van fight, I'm glad that Van already had his setback, his stunt. So now, hey, you got that pressure of being undefeated in the UFC off your back. Now you can just go out there and perform. And I feel the same way about Payton Talbott. Hey, you pulled your rookie stunt at the beginning of the year against Raoni Barcelos, who, by the way, is on a big win streak since that fight and is maybe 1 or 2 fights away from title contention. And since that point, the way that Payton rebounded against Felipe Lima was very admirable and was clear proof that this guy learned from his mistakes. He's an evolving fighter. He's a work in progress, but he's very, very talented and someone with a bright future. Now, with the former champ Henry Cejudo, I mean, this guy was a money train pre-pandemic, but he was a money train at one point. I mean, I remember cashing him at big dog odds against TJ Dillashaw, the max bet against Dominic Cruz. And you know what's funny? I actually bet on Cejudo to beat Demetrius Johnson the first time they fought. He gets knocked out in the first round. And then the next time they fought, I passed. He goes out there and dethrones DJ. So shout out to Cejudo, man. He's one of the best to ever do it. And obviously Olympic champion, UFC double champ. So Cejudo's the man. And one thing about him, even at 38 years old, he's almost 40, you know, he's coming off all these losses. He's retired before and all this stuff. The guy's still a gamer, you know, the guy still has moments in a lot of his fights, but I also feel like he's clearly over the hill in terms of his standards, because when you're talking about a prime Cejudo, the stuff that happened in that Song Yadong fight would have never happened to a prime Cejudo. The acting job, like you can blame it on the eye poke, but like, he took the full 5 minutes, okay? And any, especially UFC championship caliber fighter, knows that you're not supposed to verbalize. I can't see, especially as loud and as many times as he did. It's like he wanted the whole world to see. And when you see Dana White's reaction to how Cejudo acted, and then later on the tests come back, his eyes are completely fine. Like, look, I'm not saying he didn't get poked bad, because he did get poked bad, but he took the whole 5 minutes. And then he comes back, and I even did a video on it that if you couldn't continue, the time to not continue was when, you know, when you had those 5 minutes, that's when you tell the ref, hey man, I can't see, I'm not going to continue. Then it's a no contest. But the fact of the matter is, he said he was good to continue. He continues the fight. Song Yadong is walking him down, teeing off on him, literally chasing Henry Cejudo. Cejudo's running away. And then between rounds, Cejudo's like, yeah, I can't see. And that's why it's a TKO win. Well, actually, it's a technical decision win for Song Yadong, but in my opinion, it was a TKO. Now, I just think that Cejudo had this terribly timed retirement fight against Cruz. Like, dude, you just got your first title defense done. You knocked out the then greatest bantamweight of all time. Like, hey, kid, here's your chance to really solidify yourself as being one of the best ever. Go call out another big name in the sport. Go make moves for your next fight. Instead, he retires. Everyone's shaking their head like, dude, what are you doing, bro? And he took time off, did all these things, comes back, hasn't looked the same. Like, don't get me wrong. He's had moments in these fights on the feet and even with his signature inside trip. And I'm sure he'll have moments in this fight too. I'm not going to be surprised if he takes down Payton Talbott once or twice. I'm not going to be surprised if he lands some shots on Payton Talbott. But here's the thing about it. This is the tallest and largest opponent that Cejudo's ever been in there with. Cejudo's never been in there with someone that's 5'10". Remember, Cejudo's 5'4", listed. Between you and me, he's like 5'2", 5'3". Cejudo's never fought a bantamweight this size before. I mean, I go back to Cejudo's debut against Dustin Kimura, because I remember that guy was known for being a massive bantamweight at the time. Well, he's only 5'7". You know what I'm saying? Well, Dominic Cruz, he was known for, you know, being one of the bigger bantamweights. He's only 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. Payton Talbott, or as we like to say in Brazil, my friends, Payton Talbott is 5'10" with a 70-inch reach. Like, Cejudo is going to really struggle to close the distance in this matchup. And I think he's going to get hurt and pinged left, right, and center. And again, in the early going while Cejudo's fresh, yeah, I think he might hit an inside trip. Yeah, I think he might land some punches. But like, what's going to happen when Talbott gets back up to the feet, makes Cejudo work? Cejudo's going to start to gas out. Cejudo is not as well conditioned as he used to be back in the day in his championship run. That Cejudo, I'm playing these dog odds. But that is not the Cejudo we're dealing with. We're dealing with a Cejudo that's already retired, that's almost 40 years old, that's quitting in fights now. Like, yeah. So I'm glad Payton got the stunt out of his system, like I said, against Hayoni. And now he's got the confidence that, hey, you do belong. You're not some fraud like all these people are trying to say, in that Felipe Lima fight. And now come out here against a former champion and let's see what you can do. Now, as far as these highlights are concerned, we got to start with the former 2-division champ, Henry Cejudo. So, I mean, look, Triple C, back in the day, when he started first adapting that karate stance, super explosive, that inside trip like we talked about. I mean, Cejudo was the man. Oh, man, against TJ Dillashaw, those dog odds were such a gift. TJ had zero business dropping to 25s, which makes me wonder, why didn't Demetrius Johnson want to fight TJ? He opted to fight Ray Borg instead, which I will never understand to this day. Doesn't matter how many doesn't matter how many people try to justify it in my comment section. I will never understand that choice. Yeah. But Cejudo tried to come back after the retirement, and yeah, he's had some moments in some of these fights, but he hasn't won any of these fights. And I just don't see him coming back as a better version of the last guy we saw against Song Yadong, who, again, had moments in the fight, but largely was just out hustled, out powered, outsized, and just out fought. You know what I mean? So yeah, he's got a green opponent who's still finding his way in Payton Talbott, but Payton brings something different to the table, man. I think Payton is a great talent. When you're talking about Payton Talbott, he's very flashy. He's got big time power. He's athletic as hell. I mean, doing a backflip off that single leg attempt was absolutely ridiculous. Obviously getting taken down by this dude, Aguirre, it ain't the best look in the world, but sometimes Payton Talbott has to overcome some stuff early. So that's why I'm saying maybe Cejudo gets that inside trip early, but Cejudo, even in his prime, didn't have the best top control in the world. So now I'm supposed to think that a 40-year-old Cejudo is going to have good top control. I just see Payton scrambling, getting back up to his feet. And from there, he's so dangerous, man. I mean, whether it's the first punch of the fight, like against Yanis Gemori, or he's got to cook you like he did to Cameron Simon. And here against Hayoni, no one is exempt from that first L. It was what it was. He had to learn from it. And look, here's my proof that he learned from it. Look at this Granby roll he's about to hit on Felipe Lima. Like, this is the kind of stuff I like to see. And quite honestly, I thought he won arguably like 13 minutes of that Felipe Lima fight. There were just a couple things at like the end of the first round that may have cost him that round, but like, dude, he straight up won 13 of 15 minutes against Felipe Lima. He broke Felipe Lima. We haven't heard from Felipe Lima since. Now, I expect Felipe Lima to come back better too, but to see an ultra confident kid like that break mentally speaks volumes to the kind of prospect Talbott is. So now I think this is the perfect time and scenario for Talbott to go out there and go legend hunting. Like I said, if this was a few years back and you're giving me this price on Cejudo, then it's a no-brainer we take Cejudo. But I mean, how many times I got to say it? It's not the same guy. He's already retired a few times. He's almost 40. He's massively smaller. Like, come on, man. I'm going to go Payton Talbott to come out here and overcome some stuff early. And then Cejudo's going to start to gas out. And I think Payton Talbott's going to put a beating on Triple C. Next up in the light heavyweight division, we got the former champion, Jan Blachowicz. He's 29, 11-1, taking on Bogdan Guskov, who's 18-3. Currently, they got it Jan Blachowicz, minus 125. The comeback on Bogdan Guskov is plus 105. So here's where things get interesting. Jan is 42. He turns 43 in February. Bogdan's 33. Bogdan's an inch taller at 6'3", but it's Jan that's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage at 78 inches of reach. So I think y'all know what one of my big talking points is going to be in this fight. That's the age of Jan Blachowicz. I mean, 42 years old, turns 43 in February. Like, that's already massive red flags for me and stuff that gives me big time pause. But to Jan's credit, he's got a style that ages really well because he doesn't take a lot of damage. He's defensively responsible. He fights at kind of a slower, measured pace, and power's the last thing to go. So he's got a lot of things going for him despite his age. Now, Guskov, I'd kind of describe him as a bit of a brawler. You know, he's super exciting. He's got big power in his hands. He's only been the distance once in his career, and it was back in 2016, almost 10 years ago, you know. So Guskov is a kill or be killed fighter, and he's been having a lot of success in the UFC. You know, he's already got 2 ranked wins under his belt, finished Krylov, finished Spann. So the next logical step up in competition is against the former champion Jan Blachowicz, who's 42 years old, who's on a bit of a skid, and they're meeting at a very interesting time. On one hand, I definitely think that Jan Blachowicz is the more technical fighter here, and I understand why he's favored because he should be the better guy just in terms of technical acumen across the board. But there's certain things that we got to take note of. Like, for example, just technique-wise, I think that Jan's going to have a lot of success with the calf kicks. I think that Jan could possibly get some takedowns in the spot, and I think that Jan's punches are still very heavy, and Bogdan fights with his hands down. So Jan's got paths to victory in this fight. My issue is that being 42, almost 43, I'm curious if he can still take it the way I'm curious if he can still take damage the way he used to. And like, again, someone can counter me and be like, bro, you just went to a split with Alex Ferreira and this and that. And it's like, yeah, but did he just go to a split with him, or has time passed? And that was actually almost 3 years ago. Okay. Y'all got to remember that he took a near 2-year hiatus after the Alex fight, comes back against Olberg. And I got to admit, he fought a lot better against Olberg than I expected him to. But I also think it's a situation where Olberg, we've talked about this many times, is strictly a counter fighter. So if you don't push the issue on Olberg, he's not going to push the issue on you. And Jan was able to get away with fighting a very slow-paced fight there where not much happened, and Carlos Olberg was just able to slightly outpoint him and edge out a decision. The difference here is that Bogdan Guskov, like I said, he's a bit of a brawler. He's not the most technical guy in the world. Now, I don't want to downplay his technicality because he did show some stuff in that Krylov fight, his pull counters, and also some of his head movement is a little slick, you know, but I just view this as a completely different fight because I think Bogdan Guskov is going to create that chaos, that killer be killed style where either he's going to hit the deck or Jan's going to hit the deck. Now, when we look at these highlights, I mean, Jan Blachowicz, that body kick he hit on Latifi in his debut was just absolutely nasty. Got that finish right away. That rear naked choke standing against Devin Clark was disgusting. This choke against Krylov was disgusting. The left hook against Luke Rockhold. I mean, Jan's got a serious highlight reel. We all loved it when he knocked out Corey Anderson. All my homeboys loved it when he knocked out Corey Anderson. The Dominic Reyes knockout for the belt, like, dude. Oh, and hey, Jan knows what it's like to have a champ versus champ super fight. Remember when he beat Izzy, when Izzy tried to become a double champ? Then obviously Glover Teixeira put that Polish power to rest and tapped him out overseas. But listen, man, Jan bounced back against Rakic, who we know Rakic is a fraud and a flake, but still, he bounced back against him. He gave me a scare against Ankalaev. I max bet Ankalaev. And I mean, he kicked Ankalaev's legs out those first 2.5 rounds, but then he gassed out badly in the latter half. I bet Alex here. And first round was tough, but, you know, Jan gassed out badly there too. And then, like I said, he got outpointed by Carlos, but I thought that he had a really good account of himself, and he was 42 or 41 at the time or something like that. And like, hey man, he didn't look bad at all, but it's one of those things where now almost 43, that drop off is going to happen before you know it. Right. And he hasn't been winning these fights. He's been fighting close. He's been losing close decisions to good guys, but the next logical step in this progression of, you know, a fighter on their way out is now you're going to start getting finished by guys that you would have once beat. Now you're going to start losing close decisions to guys that you would have easily outclassed in your prime. And that's where I think Bogdan Guskov comes in, because again, I completely get the odds. Like, Jan is a better fighter than this guy, but at what point is this drop off going to happen? And honestly, I think it's going to happen soon, man. Like, and also, even if it doesn't happen on Saturday, let's say Yan gets past Bogdan, I just like the idea of having dog money on a young, hungry killer who, he's already had 5 UFC fights. He's got his first UFC L out the way. He's beat some legitimate competition. He's young and hungry against a 43-year-old that at any point the bottom could drop out and this guy could look terrible in one of these upcoming fights. So I don't know if it's going to be this fight against Bogdan Guskov, but at dog odds, I might be willing to find out. Now, when you're talking about Bogdan Guskov, like I said, you're talking about a brawler. I mean, back in the day on his regional scene, he was going out there and it was kill or be killed, just like it is in the UFC, man. And he's a very heavy hitter. I think that's one thing that's kind of underestimated about him, but he also fights with his hands down. He can be dropped and hurt too. Now, I think the Volkan Ozdemir fight was too much too soon, but I love how he rebounded since then. He's literally knocked out every single person they've put in his path since that Volkan Ozdemir fight. And listen, Ryan Spann, as you can see here, Ryan Spann had a number next to his name at the time. That's one ranked win. We don't got to talk about this. I know y'all love it when I talk about Billy Elikana, right? But look how he made him quit at that latter half of the fight, right? Destroyed him. But let's get to this next one here against Nikita Krylov, because once again, just like Ryan Spann, Nikita Krylov's a dude who had a number next to his name at the time, and this was a big, big win. Even if Nikita's seen better days, which I 100% think, still the confidence that comes with beating guys like Ryan Spann, Nikita Krylov, who have headlined UFC events, who are mainstays in the top 15, like, that's the kind of stuff that makes you feel like, hey, the octagon is my home. I belong here. Now I can take on these greater challenges, because if Guskov just made his debut against Blachowicz, I think he would have gotten smoked. But now having, that debut loss under your belt, having the 4 wins under your belt, now I think he might be ready for an aging, on his way out version of Blachowicz. So listen, guys, it's not going to surprise me if Yan has a lot of success here, because he is the more technical fighter, but it's also not going to surprise me if Yan has that drop-off performance that I've been waiting for, especially about to turn 43 in 2 months. Yeah. Give me Bogdan Guskov to come out here as an underdog, get this upset, and knock out the man with the legendary Polish power. Next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between the former champion, Brandon Moreno. He's 23-8-2, taking on Tatsuro Taira, who's 17-1. Currently, they got it, Tatsuro Taira, minus 125. The comeback on Brandon Moreno is plus 105. Taira's 6 years younger at 25. Both men are 5'7". Both men have a 70-inch reach. Japan versus Mexico. Man, this should be one hell of a fight. I love everything about this fight. And kind of a similar theme that we've been talking about with Josh Van, with Payton Talbott, how these guys had to take their setbacks, and look how they've bounced back since then. Taira, no exception either. I mean, y'all remember, if you've been listening to Half the Battle, we took Brandon Royval, I think, plus 275 odds against Taira, and that was simply first L time for Taira. That was paying dues time for Taira. And when you talk about paying dues, you talk about that fight between Taira and Royval, because in round 3, Brandon Royval almost knocked out Tatsuro Taira. And a few seconds after Taira almost got knocked the you-know-what out, Taira took the back of Brandon Royval. And that really spoke to me deep in my heart about the kind of potential Taira has, the kind of heart he has, the kind of will to win this guy has, and just how serious of a prospect. And fuck that, he's not a prospect. He's a rising contender. How serious of an emerging rising contender Tatsuro Taira truly is in the UFC flyweight division. Now with Brandon Moreno, he's touched the belt more than once, by the way, which is very, very hard to do. Usually when you lose the belt, it's a slim chance that you get to touch gold again, and he did that. So he's a legendary fighter. And he's picked himself back up from the downs. I felt like that second Royval fight he had, it was kind of looking like, hey, is Moreno kind of washed? Has Moreno seen better days? And his bounce back against Amir Albazi and Steve Erceg, he's looking reinvigorated. So, man, this is such a high-level fight. I love everything about it. Now, when you're talking about the former champion, Brandon Moreno, you're talking about one of the most exciting fighters in UFC flyweight history. I mean, that guillotine he had on Louis Smolka, that head kick to the rear naked choke against Dustin Ortiz. I was at that fight in Nashville. I mean, the guy, he's one of the best to ever do it. Now, he had mixed results against Davison, but when he beat Davison, he beat the dog shit out of Davison and finished him twice, no less, you know? And, man, when he was on the receiving end, though, you know, Davison kind of put it on him that one time. We cashed on Davison there, I think like plus 160. It's crazy how different these fights can go when you run it a bunch of times. That's something we like to talk about. You run a fight 10 times, you're going to see a different outcome 10 times, right? And this speaks more volumes to that. That rematch against Royval, night and day difference between the first time they fought, you know? But the way he bounced back against Albazi, has anyone heard from Albazi? You know what I'm saying, man? I haven't. I think Steve Erceg just bit off more than he could chew. I'm glad Erceg finally bounced back against Ode Osborne. But yeah, it's cool to see Moreno back in this position. Now, if Taira had never fought Royval, I think I'd be all over these Brandon Moreno dog odds. But let's look at this guy, Taira, because he's a serious force at flyweight. He's only 25 years old. We often talk about how Pantoja is the best back taker in the UFC flyweight division. Well, Pantoja, there's a new back taker in town. His name's Tatsuro Taira. And if you're not going to give that credit to Pantoja for being the best back taker at flyweight, you got to give that credit to Tatsuro Taira. He's ridiculous on when he takes the back. I mean, he injured Perez by taking the back, which is just ridiculous. And then his fight with Royval, like we talked about, man, look, when the back take wasn't working, it seemed like, hey, he might get put down. He might get put out. And just the heart of a lion that Tatsuro Taira showed in that fight. Hey, not tapping in this armbar was a big deal. Nice little hitchhiker escape. If you know, you know. But then to take a guy like Royval's back immediately after that, like, dude, you got that dog in you for show, you know? And then he gets a step down in competition against Peace of Mind Park. And my boy Park had zero peace of mind in that fight. Let me tell you that right now, because Taira ran through Park in a way where, yeah, I think he's earned this big step up in competition. So I definitely think it can be competitive on the feet. I even think that Moreno can have some success on the feet. It's just that how's Moreno going to deal with this back take? I've seen Pantoja take the back of Moreno multiple times. Now I get it. That's Pantoja. No big deal, right? That's the champion. That's one of the greatest flyweights to ever do it. But I think Taira's back taking abilities are right up there, man. I'd give it an A+ on the report card for real. So I am not going to be surprised one bit if Taira takes Moreno's back twice. And that's all he's got to do. Take his back twice. Stay there. You win 2 of the rounds. Now, if he's going to submit him or not, that's kind of hard to predict because Moreno getting subbed. Moreno is a true Mexican warrior. Moreno ain't just going to tap for anybody. Okay. So I'm not sure. I'm not calling no Taira sub. I mean, maybe it could happen, but I just see this being a 3-round scrap where both these guys are truly getting after it. And you're going to see one of the highest level flyweight fights of the year at UFC 323. I like Taira here, man. I feel like his stand-up is catching up. He's making leaps, and he's so young. He's so mature for his age. He's already taken that first L, and the way he bounced back was very, very impressive. And now he gets another step up in competition. And the first time he did against Royval, we took Royval. I thought that Taira wasn't ready. Now I think he's ready. Now this kid paid his dues. Tatsuro Taira crushed the grapes. And next Saturday, live at the T-Mobile Arena, I think he will drink the wine against the beloved Brandon Moreno. So give me Tatsuro Taira to come out here and win this fight. If you're looking for a sports book that doesn't limit winners or play games when it's time to get paid, then you got to check out my friends at Bet105. Super high limits so you can get down whatever you want on any sport. And when it's time to get paid, no KYC, no stupid questions. Just get your money. This weekend, we got NFL, and Bet105 are offering -103 point spreads and -110 player props. And then next week, when UFC comes back, split decision insurance. We're back in Vegas. You don't know if it's going to be Adelaide Bird, Ron McCarthy. Derek can't see so clearly. So your fighter wins a split decision, no big deal. You get your money. It is what it is. But your fighter loses that split decision. No questions asked. Bet 105 are going to give you 25% of your money back. So my friends, go to bet105.ag, use my promo code half the battle, deposit $100 and get a $50 free bet at bet105.ag using my promo code half the battle. Now let's get back to the show. Next up in the lightweight division, we got a banger between Fares Ziam, he's 17-4, taking on Nazim Sadykhov, who's 11-1-1. Currently, they got it Fares Ziam minus 135. The comeback on Nazim Sadykhov is plus 115. Nazim's 31. Fares is still only 28. Ziam's a bit taller at 6'1". He's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage at 76 inches of reach. So, serious fight at lightweight. And I feel like both these guys are future top 15 fighters in the lightweight division. Both these guys have paid dues. And Ziam especially, not that Sadykhov hasn't, it's just more so that, Sadykhov hasn't taken his first UFC L yet, which isn't his fault. He's beaten everybody they put in front of him. But Ziam's been in the UFC since he was just a literal kid. And he's been through the ups, been through the downs. And now he's finally on that win streak where I think he's a win or two away from the rankings. Now, when you're talking about Fares Ziam, talking about a very technical and tactical long-range striker in the UFC lightweight division. This guy is going to be taller than most of the guys he fights. He's going to have a significant reach advantage. And I've been waiting for a while for that first Fares Ziam UFC knockout. Now, he got it against Frivola, but it was a knee. I'm saying I've been waiting for him to knock someone out with that right hand, because on his regional scene, he was flooring dudes left and right with that right hand. And at the UFC level, he's kind of been a bit of a point fighter, but I feel like now that not only is he more mature mentally, age-wise, but also physically, like the guy is really growing into the frame. I really like the direction he's headed in. His grappling starting to catch up a bit. Like there's really a lot to like. And I feel like if this fight goes the distance, if he hasn't been hurt multiple times, he's probably going to win this fight. But on the other side with Nazim Sadykhov, you're dealing with a very, very tough individual, a guy who's super prideful, who is durable as hell. He can take a shot and he can also give a shot. I mean, he's someone that was involved in one of the other fights of the year. We talked about Royval versus Van, but Sadykhov versus Nick Mata was also one of the best fights of the year. And Sadykhov had to overcome some stuff in the early going. And when it was his turn to return the favor, boy, did he do so. And even in a lot of these fights, he just seems like he's one of these guys that he finds a way to win. It might not be the prettiest thing you've ever seen, although I will say his technique's been getting a lot cleaner. Like, don't get me wrong, he still eats shots in fights and he is kind of a meathead at times. But like, if you compare his striking in the Nick Mata fight to, say, the Evan Elder fight, he's cleaned things up a lot, man. But back to the Evan Elder fight, right? Because it's been kind of a theme with Nazim. He's a guy that finds a way to win. Like, he's down 2 rounds on the Evan Elder fight, opens up a cut, gets the stoppage in the third. The Slava fight, he lost in terms of like rounds. I think he lost 2-1 to Slava, but the way he dished out damage in that Slava fight and got that 10-8, I mean, to force the draw, very, very impressive stuff by Nazim Sadykhov. Even in that fight against Ismail Bonfim, you look at the strike count. I mean, Bonfim was doubling up Nazim Sadykhov, but when Nazim landed that head kick, I mean, he really made it count, So that's the thing. It's like he might be getting picked apart and just find that big moment where he hurts Ziam, he takes down Ziam or something like that. But the thing about it is Ziam has paid so many dues. He's so mature that I think he'll be able to stay disciplined, stay composed, keep this fight at his range. And although he's going to eat some hard shots in this spot, I mean, that's just the deal when you fight against a guy like Nazim Sadykhov. Nazim Sadykhov can give it, but he can also take it. So it just comes with the territory when you go up against Sadykhov. There might be some very sketchy moments in this fight. Ultimately, I think that Fares Ziam is going to hand Nazim Sadykhov his first UFC L. Fares is going to go into the rankings. And I think Nazim, you give him 1 or 2 more fights and he'll be right back in this spot. And I think he's a future ranked guy too. So much love for both guys. I'm going to go with Fares Ziam to win this fight via unanimous decision. Next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Grant Dawson. He's 23-1, taking on Manuel Loco Torres, who's 16-3. Currently, they got a Grant Dawson minus 200. The comeback on Manuel Torres is plus 170. Dawson's 31. Torres is 30. Both men are 5'10". Torres has an inch and a half in reach. So this is a really interesting fight, super binary. I think y'all know the dynamic here. On the feet, Torres has stupid power. I mean, he's got 15 finishes on his record, 8 knockouts. In the UFC, he's never been past the first round. Loco Torres is a guy that you better be ready that if things don't go your way against him, you might wake up looking up at the lights. And when you're talking about Grant Dawson, he's a super relentless grappler. I mean, he's coming out there. He's putting up the takedown numbers that we like to see. And I got to give him some credit because I used to shit all over his striking. It's gotten a little bit better, man. It really has. He's tying some things up, so I got to give him credit. But his 2 L's, he's been knocked the you-know-what out. And both times under a minute. You know, one time on his regional scene, those Travis Brown elbows, and the other time against Bobby Green, which, hey, we cashed like a plus 350 on Bobby Green. So shout out Bobby Green for that. But since that point, I really like how Dawson's rebounded. And he's got some very good wins, some high-level wins on his resume. And it was super impressive the way he handled Rafa Garcia, the way he destroyed Diego Ferreira. So now it's one of these situations where if you're betting Dawson on the feet, he's going to give you a little bit of a scare and he might get knocked out. But if he can extend this fight and start to really establish some top control on a guy like Torres, I think he's going to drown Torres. I think he's going to submit Torres. I think he's going to ground and pound TKO Torres. I think it's one of these situations where he has to get past that early explosiveness and that kind of spazziness of Torres where like Torres could catch him while they're both cold and, you know, early on, or, you know, Dawson shoots a bad shot early and gets Travis Brown elbowed or something like that. Like that could absolutely happen. So from that perspective, I get why people are taking the underdog shot on Torres, but in any kind of extended fight, any kind of prolonged periods of time on the ground, it's going to greatly favor Grant Dawson. I think he can really come out here, you know, kind of overcome maybe a sketchy moment or two in that first round and then just drown Loco Torres on the mat. Now, it's not Loco Torres' fault that he hasn't been past the first round in the UFC, win or lose. I mean, he puts on the kind of fights that the fans want to see. And Dawson, ironically enough, does the opposite. He puts on the opposite of the kind of fights that the fans want to see. But when you mix these two together, I really think it's round 1 KO or bust for Manuel Torres. I don't see him getting a late second round or third round KO. It's either you're going to either knock him out right away or you're falling into that quicksand and you're fighting for your life and getting choked out. So give me Grant Dawson to come out here and defeat Loco Torres. Next up, also in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Terrance McKinney, he's 17-7, taking on Chris Duncan, who's 14-2. Currently, they got Chris Duncan minus 180. The comeback on Terrance McKinney is plus 155. So Duncan's 32, McKinney's 31. Both men are 5'10". McKinney's got a 2-inch reach advantage at 73.5 inches of reach. So on one hand, this fight is similar to Dawson versus Torres in the sense that McKinney, just like Torres, is round 1 or bust. However, the difference is that McKinney's not KO or bust. McKinney can take you down and submit you as well, which, speaking of Torres actually submitted Chris Duncan a couple years ago. So the blueprint on how McKinney can win this fight has been established, whether he can come out here and knock out Chris Duncan in the first round or take him down, take his back, and choke him out. The thing about it is, if he does not finish Chris Duncan in that first round, it's not that Terrance McKinney doesn't have the skills to fight in an extended fight. I actually think he does have the skills. I think he's a very skilled fighter. It's more so that Terrance McKinney has kind of made like a personal agreement with himself that he's a balls to the wall, kill or be killed type fighter. Doesn't matter who he's going up against. Doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what your specialty is. McKinney is going to try to run you over in that first round. That's simply what he does. I mean, when you're talking about a guy like Terrance McKinney, you're talking about a guy with 17 wins, 17 finishes, and 16 of them are in the first round. But on the flip side, he's also been finished 5 times. And every single time he's been past round 1 in the UFC, he's been finished. And every single time except once in his entire career that he's been past round 1, he's also been finished. In 24 professional fights, Terrance McKinney has never been the distance. It's quite impressive. Now, with Chris Duncan, he's like the Scottish Justin Gaethje, man. That's what he called himself when he first came into the UFC. And at first, I didn't quite see it because I felt like, look, I saw it in the Charlie Campbell fight, but I didn't see it in that Omar Morales fight. But I've been seeing it lately, and now he's added a disgusting guillotine to his repertoire, which you love to see. And I feel like these last few performances he's had, I mean, the way he destroyed Jordan Vucenic came into the UFC with a lot of hype. Like people were saying that Vucenic was going to go on to be this contender and do all these things. And Chris Duncan bitched out Vucenic so badly that the matchmakers literally thought, hey, this guy looks like an amateur. We're just going to go ahead and not even let him finish out his contract. Like that's how bad Duncan did Vucenic. And then against Mateusz Rambecki as a big underdog, no less, Duncan goes out there and he even got a 30-27 on one of the judges' scorecards. So for having a reputation for just being this Scottish meathead brawler, I think that Duncan is a little bit more intelligent than people give him credit for. But the same dynamic exists here, just like it does in any Terrance McKinney fight. Those first 3 minutes, those first 4 minutes of round one, I mean, the guy's hell on wheels. You have to have your guard nice and high. You got to be on your bike. Your takedown defense better be on point. And if you do get taken down, you got to make this guy work. Because if you don't give Terrance McKinney resistance, Terrance McKinney is going to go ahead and finish you. You give Terrance McKinney an inch, you will take a mile. That's the bottom line. But if you can just make Terrance McKinney work for every single moment of this fight, not give him anything for free, and somehow get this past that first round, make McKinney sit on that stool in between rounds with the towel over his head thinking about, fuck, this guy survived my early storm. If Chris Duncan can get it to that point, I think Chris Duncan is going to run over Terrance McKinney. But it all comes down to that round one dynamic. I think you guys understand that pretty damn well. So I am going to pick Chris Duncan. There's obviously a chance he gets finished in the first, but if he doesn't, he's got multiple avenues to victory against McKinney, whether it's a knockout, whether it's a submission. A decision is even possible, although I don't see this fight going the distance. But Chris, get me past the first 5 minutes and you win this fight. Next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Marvin Vettori, he's 19-8-1, taking on Brunno Hulk Ferreira, who's 14-2. So the odds have actually flipped. Now it's Brunno Ferreira minus 125. The comeback on Vettori's plus 105. Brunno's a year older at 33, but not in fight years, just in numerical age. He's also 5'10 compared to Marvin's 6 feet, but between you and me, Brunno's 5'8. And Vettori's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage at 74 inches of reach. So I took Brunno about a day or two ago at plus 100 odds. I mean, y'all know I've been on a fade Marvin Vettori world tour, whether it was the Cannonier fight, the Dolidze fight. I mean, and I'm talking about the second Dolidze fight. I thought that Vettori lost the first Dolidze fight. I feel like Vettori has been on a ridiculous downswing since the title fight against Adesanya. I mean, he's 1-5 since then, and the one win is that controversial win against Dolidze, which I didn't think he won that fight. And this guy's known for being a walking punching bag. He's durable as all hell. He can take a shot, but he doesn't have much power coming back. And now the durability is starting to wane. I mean, he hasn't been stopped yet, but he is getting badly hurt in almost every fight he's in. He's giving up easy takedowns. Some of the optics on the feet when he eats punches are just not the best. He's looking like a washed up fighter. Now with Brunno Hulk Ferreira, similar to how we talked about with some of these other up-and-coming prospects, I like the fact that this guy knows what defeat is like. Okay, he's not just riding high off momentum. This guy's been on the wrong side of one too, and that's really important for me at the UFC level, especially when you're taking on such a big step up in competition as the former title challenger and former top 5 guy. Not in my book, but according to the official rankings, at one point he was a former top 5 guy in Marvin Vettori. Now with Brunno Hulk Ferreira, he's short, he's stocky, he's super dangerous. And I love the experience that he's gathered in his short amount of time in the UFC. I mean, he knocked out Hobocop. He destroyed Armin Petrosian. He had a serious war with Abus Magomedov. And now he gets the chance to get this big step up in competition against Marvin Vettori. And I think he's catching Marvin Vettori at the perfect time. If there's one advantage you give Vettori, it's the volume edge. Yeah, I think Vettori's going to have some volume on Brunno, but the thing about it is Vettori is not a heavy hitter at all. In fact, Vettori's been in the UFC like 10 years. He's got one knockdown in that whole decade he's been in the UFC, and that was against Jack Hermanson. Who shout out Jack, but he's getting knocked the you-know-what out every single fight now, So Brunno doesn't really have to worry about what's coming back at him. And we're talking about a guy in Brunno, like I said, he stood up and banged with Hobocop, and he knocked out Hobocop, you know? So the height difference and this and that is not going to be a big deal because Brunno's used to that. But it's Vettori who's not used to fighting an opponent this much shorter. Now, Brunno doesn't have the volume that Vettori has, but what he does have is when he actually lets his hands go, there's a serious crack in his punches. I mean, he gets reactions from guys that are like, oh shit, like, which one of y'all hit me with that, you know? And with Vettori, you look at his last fight against Brendan Allen. Brendan Allen's a guy that's been knocked out in the UFC multiple times. Vettori was hitting Brendan Allen with his hardest shot, and Brendan Allen's like putting his hands up, like taunting him, like, what, that's all you got? You know, when Brendan Allen is taunting you after eating flush shots, that should speak volume to the power or lack thereof in the hands of Marvin Vettori. So honestly, we talk about this often. These things don't get better. These things get worse. You're talking about a serious finisher in Brunno Ferreira taking on a guy in Marvin Vettori who's actually never been finished before. Something's got to give. And I think that next Saturday, live at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, Brunno Hulk Ferreira is going to be the first man in UFC history to finish Marvin Vettori. Next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Edson Barboza. He's 24-13, taking on Jalin Turner, who's 14-9. Currently, they got it Turner minus 265. The comeback on Barboza is plus 225. So Barboza's 39. Turner's 30. Turner's 4 inches taller at 6'3". He's got a half-inch reach advantage at 75.5 inches of reach. So this is a tough one for me to call because on one hand, you got something that I really don't like betting on, which is a 39-year-old in Barboza, who's probably a fight or two away from retirement. But we talk about a fight or two away from retirement. Turner, look, he's 30, which I like, but like he just retired his last fight. He's lost 4 of his last 5. He quits in fights. Like Turner has got like all the physical attributes, all the intangibles, the knockout power, like everything you could want, but he doesn't have the brains. He doesn't have the heart. So that makes it really tough. It makes it really tricky. Honestly, this is a tough fight because like I can see Turner just coming out here getting a first-round knockout over Barboza. I do think Barboza is that far gone. If Turner doesn't get a first-round knockout, all bets are off the table, and I could see Barboza starting to ease himself into the fight, starting to chop down some calves, starting to eventually get some big combos going, and maybe breaking Turner in the second and third round. So this is a really tough fight to call, at least before the fact. It won't be tough to call after the fact because, like, if Turner just runs him over in that first round, I'm not going to be surprised. But if Turner pulls a stunt, are y'all going to be surprised? Like, don't be. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, the guy's lost 4 of his last 5. He's pulled stunts in his last 2. He retired in his last fight. And I just don't trust this guy's mentality at all. But it sucks because he's facing a corpse and a 39-year-old. So it's like, yeah, right now I'm not sure what to do with this one. Like normally in these instances, it's a dog or pass situation. It's just I'm very honest with myself that the dog could just get ran over in that first round easily. Like it might not be anything, you know. Barboza has looked terrible lately. But you know what's one thing Barboza has that Turner doesn't have? A big heart. You know what I'm saying? I'm not talking about as a person. I'm talking about as a fighter. I'm talking about inside that octagon. Barboza's overcome adversity. Barboza's taken his beatings and them some. Barboza's paid the ultimate dues, you know, but at what point does it not even matter, bro? You're 39, almost 40, you know, like at what point do you just fall off the cliff? And then with Turner, it's like, why'd you come back? You retired for a reason. We know you don't do well in back and forth fights. We know if you can run someone over and you can be the hammer, hey, you're a fantastic hammer. But when it's time to be the nail or it's time to have a fight of the night type fight, Turner just doesn't live up to it, man. And I also think Turner looks scarier than he actually is. Like I remember betting on Matt Frivola against Jalin Turner back in Atlanta, you know? So, if Edson was just a little bit younger, then it'd be a no-brainer to take Edson here. It's just, yeah, I'm not really sure. Next week I'll have a pick for y'all on this one. But tell me what y'all think. Is it Turner round 1 or is it Barboza weathering a storm and chopping this man down? Like, let me know what y'all think. And also, real quick, I know that I'm skipping some of these prelims like the Macy Barber fight and this and that. That's because I don't have anything to say about those fights right now. Fight week, when I have the full card predictions out, that's when I'll have opinions on every single fight. But right now, just kind of preliminary opinions and just kind of how I'm feeling right now. And just to give you all something on Thanksgiving, because I'm truly grateful for all your support. So I wanted to hook up the fans. You know, Wednesday is usually the time I record the podcast. So I wanted to come out here and give you all a podcast. But yeah, some of these fights, like I haven't looked into the Macy Barber fight. I haven't, you know, so just being 100 with you all about that. Next up in the light heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Ibo Aslan, he's 14-3, taking on Iwo Baraniewski, who's 6-0. Currently, they got an Iwo minus 185, and Ibo is plus 165. Iwo is 27, Ibo is 29, Ibo 6'3", which makes him 3 inches taller. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage at 77.5 inches of reach. Can someone tell me what happened in Ibo Aslan's last fight against Billy Elikana? Because when you're talking about Ibo Aslan, you're talking about a guy up until the Billy Elikana fight. Ibo Aslan's had 16 professional fights. In all 16 of those fights, win or lose, this man is ultra aggressive, in your face, swinging bombs. And that's what he's known for. A killer be kill type fighter, the kind of fighter that the fans want to see. And in that fight against Billy Elikana, leading into the fight, he goes to Dagestan 8 weeks and forget how to fight, goes in there against Billy Elikana and doesn't pull the trigger. I don't understand what happened there. Does someone know? Because like, it's not like Billy Elikana did something spectacular there. When you look at the strike count, Elikana outstruck him 35-28. So it was razor close, man. But Ibo didn't let his hands go. I don't understand what the deal was. Like, is that a reflection of what we can expect in his future fights? Is he going to come out gun shy from here on out? Or are we going to get back to that Ibo Aslan balls to the wall, killer be killed type guy, which the fans love watching? And with Baraniewski, I don't know how to pronounce his name yet. I'll know how to pronounce his name next week. Iwo is a dangerous first round finisher. You know, he's got a ground game. He's got knockout power. He looks good, but like none of his fights have been past round 1. So I don't really know much about him in an extended fight. But what I have seen, I've liked. But again, I need to see what you look like past the 2-minute mark. It's not your fault you haven't gone past 2 minutes in any of these fights, but like, I just need to know before I lay a price on him. You know, I need to know more about the guy. And what makes it so tough is that Ibo Aslan's last fight, it's like, what the hell was that, dude? That's not Ibo Aslan. Again, Ibo can lose some fights, he can win some fights, but in the fights he's lost in the past, he still went out on his shield. He still fought like a true warrior. He was still trying to knock people's heads off. Whereas the last fight with Elikana, it's like he didn't even try. I just don't understand. And now, since that fight happened, where's your confidence at? Are you going to come back and not try again? Or are you going to come back like the old Ibo Aslan and try to take this dude's head off? Because if he does try to take this dude's head off, I think he gives himself a lot more of a chance to win. But I also think there's a chance that Iwo Baraniewski might have a significant advantage on the mat if he can get it there. So I need to look into this one a little bit more. But very, very interesting fight. Lots of factors going into it for sure. Next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Mansur Abdulmalik. He's 8-0-1. Between you and me, he's 9-0 because he definitely beat Cody Brundage. Taking on Antonio Tricali, who's 12-5. Currently, they got it Mansur minus 1,000. The comeback on Tricali is plus 650. So Tricali is 7 years older at 35, 3 inches taller at 6'5", and has a half-inch reach advantage at 80 inches of reach. I think Mansur's a really good prospect. I know some people haven't really been that impressed with him, but I simply disagree with them. I think that this guy's got all the potential in the world. He's a freak athlete. He's got one-hitter quitter power, former D1 wrestler. Like, he's got so many intangibles going for him. Now it's just about the mental catching up with the physical, because I was at that fight with Cody Brundage in Atlanta, Georgia. I know people like to joke around. Hey, Mansur bet the over 1.5 rounds, which is funny because when you go back and you watch the fight, it's like as soon as he actually let anything go, he hurt Brundage and destroyed him right away. It was just like, he took like a while to get started, which I don't know if it was the bright lights. I don't know if he bet the over. Like what exactly happened there, man? Because like I said, as soon as he let things go in round 3, he just got him out of there like it was nothing. And, you know, there was overturning it and this and that. No. Look you in the eye right now with a straight face. Mansur Abdulmalik finished Cody Brundage in Atlanta, Georgia. I was there. We were shocked when they announced that it was going to judge's decision. We were like, wait, what? He finished him. We didn't even see the low blow on the screen or the headbutt or whatever. Like, yeah, he finished. He finished that guy. Now, as far as Tricoli, he's a winner in life. I mean, the guy's dating Mackenzie Dern. The guy is a very successful poker player. Like, bro, why do you need to be fighting? Like, if this isn't your everything, there's no reason to be doing this, you know? And it's like, you don't need this shit. You get to go home to Mackenzie Dern. You're winning $100,000 at multiple poker tournaments. Like, bro, you don't need to be fighting one of the best prospects in the middleweight division. There's no need for this, man. And there's a reason he's a plus 650 dog. What does he bring to the table? He's super tall. He doesn't know how to fight tall. He's a black belt. He gets submitted like every fight. It's like, yeah, man. Hey, you're winning at life, kid, but you're not going to be winning inside the octagon against Mansur Abdul Malik. Now, I'd love to say Mansur gets a first round finish, but I was super confident about that against Brundage, and I don't know what happened when he was just staring at him for like the first 7.5 minutes. And then once he decided to finish him, he did finish him. So, Mansur, whenever you decide to finish Antonio Tricali, you will finish Antonio Tricali. But to the fans, I don't know when that's going to be, because I don't know. I can't get inside the mind of Mansur and know what he's thinking. But if he comes out balls to the wall, it'll be a first round finish. If he comes out more paced and measured, you might have to wait a bit. But yeah, the minus 1,000 favorite is going to get a finish here. And last but not least, in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Muhammad Naimov, he's 13-3, taking on Myron Santos, who's 16-1. Currently, they got it Myron Santos minus 240. The comeback on Muhammad Naimov is plus 205. Naimov is 6 years older at 31. It says he's taller, but I think that's fake news. I think they're both 5'9". There's no way Myron Santos is 5'7". That's total bullshit. And Santos is going to have a 2-inch reach advantage at 72 inches of reach. Really good fight to kick off the card. So Muhammad Naimov, he's been doing his thing, because I remember him on Contender Series when he lost to Colin Anglin, and I did not have high expectations for him at all. And he surpassed my expectations, man. I mean, he went out there, he beat Nathaniel Wood, which is a very, very good win. That's aged great. And I just think he's a solid, well-rounded fighter. He's kind of average, nothing special, but he's not a can. He's not a bum. He's just, like I said, solid, well-rounded, decent everywhere, not great anywhere. Whereas Myron Santos is a very special striker. Now, when I say special, that doesn't mean flashy. He's not that flashy, but he's so technically sound. He's a clinician, and his hand fighting, his parrying, his defense is just ridiculous. His counters are so on point, and he can go out there and clown some guys, but he does it on his terms. He only strikes on his terms. He doesn't force things. And he's had an issue in the past with his takedown defense and get-up game. He's been making leaps and bounds improvements. Like, I've been very, very impressed with the improvements he's making, just fight to fight. I mean, you compare the Francis Marshall fight to the Dan Argueta fight, and then you compare the Francis Marshall fight to the Sodiq Yusuff fight, and just his instincts for sprawling, getting back up from bottom. It's a work in progress, but I see the progress. I see the improvements, and he's going back and forth between Extreme Couture and the Fighting Nerds. I like the people he's surrounding himself with. And I think in this fight, Naimov's going to have to get to the grappling, because on the feet, like, dude, I saw Khan Awfully rock Naimov. You understand what I'm saying? So, well, I think that Naimov can strike with certain guys. I don't think he can strike with Myron Santos. I think that there's a big class difference on the feet here. But what Naimov can do is make this grindy, start to push him up against the fence, start to mix in those takedowns. Now, I'm not sure how easy that's going to be to do, because Myron knows that that's what people want to do to him. And he's been leveling up that aspect of his game big time. So I think it's going to be a tough out for Muhammad Naimov. I think that Naimov can have a moment here and there, a takedown here and there. But ultimately, I just think that the majority of this fight is going to be dictated by Myron Santos. And I think that every time you see this guy, you're going to be seeing these level ups, more hints of maturity, more percentages improved in his takedown defense and get up game. And one day you're going to see a top 15 guy. I don't know if he's ready to be that guy yet, but one day I think he will be that guy. I think he is special. I think he is talented. It's just about the same things that apply to every other 24-year-old that's a super talent in the UFC. You got to pay dues. You got to go through the ups and the downs. So nothing's going to surprise me, but ultimately I do think that Myron Santos is going to put some kind of striking clinic on Muhammad Naimov and get this win. So my friends, that was just a little early preview for UFC 323, which is going down next week. And like I told y'all, next Wednesday, I'm going to do a full card breakdown, give a pick for every single fight, going to have the highlights for every single fight. Shout out the GOAT Meticulous, and shout out to the fans, man. Hope y'all have a very, very happy Thanksgiving. And I want to let y'all know I'm doing another giveaway. So once y'all get me to 25K subscribers, I'm going to give out a free signed UFC glove by UFC Hall of Famer Michael Bisping. So like I said, this glove is signed by Michael Bisping. As soon as I get to 25K subs, one of y'all is going to take it home. And we might get, and I'm going to hook y'all up with, I'm going to hook y'all up with some other stuff too. I always do. So hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment. And I appreciate y'all very much. Have a very happy Thanksgiving. I'm on brisket and mac and cheese duties. So, there's a lot of pressure on my back, but nah, I mean, I got that brisket already marinating with the mustard, with the garlic powder, the salt, the pepper, the paprika, everything you can imagine. My mac and cheese is out of this world. So we're coming in guns blazing. And I think next time y'all see me, I might have an extra 20 pounds on me, So yeah, I'm excited. But again, thank you all so much for your support. Happy Thanksgiving. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.